Chapter 5 Fantasy. Stile drew up in a deep forest. The smell of turf and fungus was strong, and old leaves crackled underfoot. The light from 4 moons beamed down between the branches to illuminate the ground. It would have been near dawn on Proton. It seemed to be the same time of day here. The same number of moons as Proton, too. There were 7, with 3 or 4 usually in sight. Gravity, however, seemed close to Earth normal, so if this was really outside a dome, it was a spot on a larger or denser planet than Proton. He turned to face his pursuers, but there were none. They had not passed through the shimmering curtain. He looked carefully, locating it, and saw, dimly, the light at the hall he had left, with the scattered crates. Sheen was there, one of them, and several androids. One android came right at him and disappeared. Stile watched, determined to understand this phenomenon, because it reflected most directly on his immediate welfare. He had passed through, but the robots and androids had not. This thing transmitted only human beings? Not artificial ones? That might be reasonable, but he hesitated to accept that until there was more data. In his absence, the fight on the other side of the curtain soon abated. The androids and fake Sheen departed, apparently on his trail again. A false one. Only the real Sheen remained, as the squad evidently considered her irrelevant, and it seemed she could not perceive either him or the curtain. Stile decided to risk crossing back, if only to tell her he was safe. There was risk, as the squad could be lurking nearby, hoping Sheen would lead them to him again, but he could not leave her tormented by doubt. This could be a much better hideout than the crate. He stepped through the curtain, and found himself still in the dark forest. He had crossed without being matter transmitted back. He looked back, and there it was, behind him. Through it he saw the imprint of his feet in the soft forest loam, the leaves and tufts of grass and moss all pressed flat for the moment, and like a half-reflection, the square of light of the service hall, now empty. He passed through the curtain a third time. There was no tingle, no sensation. He turned about and looked through, and saw Sheen searching for him, unrobotic alarm on her cute face. Oh, yes, she cared. "I'm here! Sheen!" he called, passing his hand through. But his hand did not reach her. It remained in the forest. She gave no evidence of seeing or hearing him. She would think him dead, and that bothered him more than the notion of being trapped this side of the matter transmission screen. If she thought him dead, she would consider her mission a failure and then turn herself off, in effect, committing suicide. He did not want her to do that. No, not at all. "Sheen!" he cried, experiencing a surge of emotion. "Sheen, look at me! I'm caught here beyond a one-way transmit." But if it really were one way, of course she would not be able to see him. However, it had to be two-way, because he had seen people traveling both ways through the curtain, and he had seen the forest from Proton, and could now see Proton from the forest. "Sheen!" he cried again, his urgency almost choking him. Her head snapped around. She had heard him. Stile waved violently. "Here! Here, Sheen! Through the curtain!" Her gaze finally fixed on him. She reached through the curtain and did not touch him. "Stile!" Her voice was faint. He grabbed her hands in his, with no physical contact. Their fingers phased through each other like images, like superimposing holographs. "Sheen, we're in 2 different worlds. We cannot touch, but I'm safe here." He hoped. Safe? She asked, trying to approach him. But as she passed through the curtain, she disappeared. Stile quickly stepped across himself, turning, and there she was on the other side, facing away from him, looking down the hall. She turned and saw him again, with an effort. Stile, I can't reach you. How can I protect you? Are you a ghost? I'm alive. I crossed once and can't cross back. It's a whole new world here. A nice one. Trees and grass and moss and earth and fresh air. They held hands again, each grasping air. How? I don't know how to cross. There must be a way to return, because I've seen a woman do it. But until I find out how, I must join you. She tried again to cross, and failed again. Oh, Stile. I don't think it works for non-humans, he said. But if I can remain here for a week, and find out how to return, I will wait for you, she said, and there was something plaintive in her stance. She wanted so much to protect him from harm, and could not. Go into that world. Maybe it is better for you. I will come back when I can, Stile promised. He saw the tears in her eyes. To hell with the assorted humanoid artifices such robots were programmed with. She meant it. Stile spread his arms at the verge of the curtain. She opened hers, and they embraced intangibly, and kissed air, and vanished from each other's perception. He had promised, but would he be able to keep that pledge? He didn't know, and he worried that Sheen would maintain her vigil long after hope was gone, suffering as only a virtually immortal robot could suffer. That hurt him, even in anticipation. Sheen did not deserve to be a machine. Stile did not tease himself or Sheen further. He strode on through the curtain and into the forest. He had a fair knowledge of earthly vegetation, because aspects of the game required identification of it, and a number of citizens imported exotic plants. The light was poor, but with concentration he could manage. The nearest tree was a huge oak, or a very similar species, with the air plants called Spanish moss dangling from its branches. Beyond it was a similarly large spruce, or at any rate a conifer. This was the source of that pine perfume smell. There were large leaves looking like separated hands in the shadow, and pine needles. So there must be a pine tree here somewhere, but mostly this was a glade fairly well-established grass in the center. Stile liked it very well. It reminded him of an especially exotic citizen's retreat. Dawn was coming. There was no dome above, no shimmer of the force field holding in the air. Through the trees he saw the dark clouds of the horizon looming, trying like goblins to hold back the burgeoning light of the sun, and slowly failing. Planet Proton had no such atmospheric effects. Red tinted the edges of the clouds, and white. It was as if a burning fluid were accumulating behind, brimming over, until finally it spilled out and a shaft of scintillating sunlight lanced at light speed through the air and struck the ground beside Stile. The whole thing was so pretty that he stood entranced until the sun was fairly up, too bright to look at anymore. The forest changed by developing daylight. The somberness was gone, and so was the curtain. That barrier had been tenuous by night. It could still be present, but drowned by the present effulgence. He could not locate it at all. That bothered him, though it probably made no difference. He walked about, examining the trees. Some had flowers opening, and stray rustlings denoted hidden life. Birds, squirrels. He would find out what they were in due course. He liked this place. It could have been a private garden, but this was natural and awesomely extensive. Caution prevented him from shouting to check for echoes, but he was sure this was the open surface of a planet, not at all what he would have expected from a matter transmission outlet. He found a large bull spruce. Damn it, it was a spruce! Its small, dry branches radiating out in all directions. This was the most climbable of trees, and Stile, of course, was an excellent climber. He did not resist the temptation. He mounted that big old tree with a primitive joy. Soon he was in the upper reaches, and gusts of wind he had not felt below were swaying the dwindling column of the trunk back and forth. Stile loved it. His only concern was the occasional pain in his knees when he tried to bend them too far. He did not want to aggravate the injury carelessly. At last he approached the reasonable limit of safety. The tops of surrounding trees were dropping below him, their foliage like low hedges from this vantage. He anchored himself by hooking legs and elbows conveniently, and looked about. The view was a splendor. The forest abutted the cliff-like face of a nearby mountain to one side, south, according to the sun, and thinned to the north into islands of trees surrounded by sea-like fields of bright grain. In the distance, the trees disappeared entirely, leaving a gently rolling plain on which animals seemed to be grazing. Farther to the north, there seemed to be a large river, terminating abruptly in some kind of crevice, and a whitish range of mountains beyond that. To either side, all he could see was more forest, a number of the individual trees taller than this one. The mountain to the south faded upward into a purple horizon. There seemed to be no sign of civilized habitation. This was less and less like a matter transmission station. Yet if not that, what was it? He had seen other people pass through the curtain, and had done so himself. There had to be something more than a mere wilderness. He looked again, fixing the geography in his mind for future reference. Then he spied a structure of some sort to the northeast. It looked like a small medieval castle, with high stone walls and turrets, and perhaps a blue pennant. Very well. Human habitation did exist. Yet this remained a far cry from modern technology. He liked this world very well, but he simply didn't trust it. Matter transmission could not exist without an extremely solid industrial base. And if that base were not here, where was it? Was this a sweetly baited trap for people like him, who were in trouble on Proton? In what manner would that trap be sprung? Stile climbed down. His best course, as he saw it, would be to go to that castle and inquire. But first he wanted to check the region of the curtain again, fixing it absolutely in his mind so he could find it any time he wanted to, because this was his only contact with his own world, and with Sheen. This wilderness world might be an excellent place to stay for a while, but then he would need to go home, lest he suffer exile by default. He was approaching the invisible curtain when a man popped out of it. Friend or foe? Stile decided not to risk contact, but the man spied him before he could retreat to cover. "Hey, get lost?" the stranger called. "It's over here." Yes," Stile said, approaching. This did not seem to be an android or robot. Abruptly deciding not to compromise on integrity, even by implication, he added, "I came through by accident. I don't know where I am." "Oh, a new one. I first crossed last year. Took me 6 months to learn the spells to cross back. Now I go over for free meals, but I live over here in Phase." "Spells? To cross back?" Stile asked blankly. "How else? From the other side, you just have to will to cross hard enough. But from this side, only a spell will do it. A new one every time. You'll get the hang of it." "I thought this was a matter transmission unit." The man laughed as he walked to a tree and reached into the foliage of a low branch. A package came down into his hands.
There's no such thing as matter transmission. No, it's the magic curtain. It's all over, but it's not safe to use it just anywhere. You have to make sure no one on the other side sees you go through. You know how those citizens are. If they ever caught on there was something they didn't control.
Yes, I am unemployed because of citizen manipulation.
Which explains why you had the will to cross first time. The curtain's been getting clearer, but still, you can't even see it if you don't have good reason, let alone use it. Then you have to will yourself through, strongly, right as you touch it. Most people never make it. Ever.
The man opened his package and brought out a crude tunic, which he donned. Stile stared. You wear clothes here? He remembered the clothing marks on the woman.
Sure do. You'd stick out like a sore toe if you went naked here in Phase.
The man paused, appraising Stile.
Look, you're new here and sort of small. I'd better give you an amulet.
He rummaged in his bag, while Stile suppressed an unreasoning resentment of the remark about his size. The man had not intended any disparagement. An amulet? Stile asked after a moment. He considered himself to be swift to adjust to new realities, but he found it hard to credit this man's evident superstition. Spell, magic, amulet. How could a proton serf revert to medieval Earth lore so abruptly?
Right. We're supposed to give them to newcomers, to help them get started, keep things smooth, so there's no ruckus about the curtain and all. We've got a good thing going here, and could get sour if too many people got in on it. So don't go blabbing about the curtain carelessly. It's better to let people discover it by accident.
I will speak of it only cautiously, Stile agreed. That did make sense. Whatever the curtain was, matter transmission or magic. The man finally found what he was looking for, a statuette hanging on a chain.
Wear this around your neck. It will make you seem clothed properly until you can work up a real outfit. Won't keep you warm or dry. It's just an illusion, but it helps. Then you can pass it on to some other serf when he comes across. Help him keep the secret. Stay anonymous. That's the rule.
Yes. Stile accepted the amulet. The figure was of a small demon with horns, tail, and hooves, scowling horrendously. How does this thing work?
You just put it on and voice it. Will it to perform. That's all. It's preset magic that anybody can use. You'll see. You probably don't really believe in magic yet, but this will show you.
Thank you, Stile said, humoring him. The man waved negligently as he departed in his tunic and sandals, bearing south. Now Stile made out a faint forest path there, obvious only when one knew where to look. In a moment, he was gone. Stile stared down at the amulet. Belief in magic. The man had spoken truly when he said Stile was a skeptic, yet the fellow had seemed perfectly sensible in other respects. Maybe it was a figure of speech, or a practical joke, like an initiation rite. See what foolishness newcomers could be talked into. Emperor's new clothing. He shook his head. All right, I won't knock it until I won't knock what I haven't tried. I'll play the game. Once. Amulet, I invoke you. Do your thing. And he put the chain on over his head. Suddenly, he was strangling. The chain was constricting, cutting off his wind and blood. The amulet seemed to be expanding, its demon figure holding the ends of the chain in its miniature hands, grinning evilly as it pulled. Stile did not know how this worked, but he knew how to fight for his life. He ducked his chin down against his neck and tightened his muscles, resisting the constriction of the chain. He hooked a finger into the crease between chin and neck on the side, catching the chain and yanked. He was trying to break a link, but the delicate seeming metal was too strong. He was only cutting his finger. More than one way to fight a garrote. Stile grabbed the grinning demon by its two little arms and hauled them apart. The little monster grimaced, trying to resist, but the chain slackened. Stile took a breath and felt the trapped blood in his head flow out. Pressure on the jugular vein did not stop the flow of blood to the brain, as many thought. It stopped the return of the blood from the head back to the heart. That was uncomfortable enough, but not instantly conclusive. But still, the demon grew, and as it did, its strength increased in proportion. It drew its arms together again, once more constricting the loop about Stile's neck. Even through his discomfort, Stile managed a double take. The demon was growing? Yes, it was. He had observed it without noting it. From an amulet a few centimeters long, it had become a living creature, swelling horrendously as it fought. Now it was half the size of Stile himself, and fiendishly strong. Stile held his breath, put both hands on the hands of the demon, and swung it off its feet. He whirled it around in a circle. It was strong, but as with robot strength, this was not sufficient without anchorage or leverage. This was another misconception many people had, assuming that a Superman really could leap a mile or pick up a building by one corner or fight invincibly. That belief had cost many gamesmen their games with Stile, and might cost this demon its own success. As long as the creature clung to the chain, it was, in fact, captive, and when it let go, even with one hand, it would free Stile from the constant threat of strangulation. That would be a different contest entirely. The demon clung tenaciously to its misconception. It did not let go. It grinned again, showing more teeth than could fit even in a mouth that size, and clamped its arms yet closer, tightening the noose. Stile felt his consciousness going. He could hold his breath for minutes, but the constriction was slowing his circulation of blood, now squeezing his neck so tightly that the deeply buried carotid artery was feeling it. That could put him out in seconds. He staggered toward a towering tulip tree, still whirling his burden. He heaved mightily and smashed the creature's feet into the trunk. It was quite a blow. The thing's yellow eyes widened, showing jags of flame red, and the first sound escaped from it. Some chains slipped, giving Stile respite, but still the demon did not let go. Stile hauled it up and whirled it again, with difficulty. He had more strength now, but the demon had continued to grow. How the hell could it do that? This was absolutely crazy, and was at this point only slightly smaller than Stile himself. It required special power and balance to swing it, but this time its midsection smashed into the tree. Now its burgeoning mass worked against it, making the impact stronger. The demon's legs bent around the trunk with the force of momentum. Then they sprang back straight. Stile reversed his swing, taking advantage of the bounce, bringing the demon around in the opposite arc and smashing it a third time into the tree. This time it was a bone-jarring blow, and a substantial amount of slack developed in the chain. Stile, alert for this instance, slipped his head free in one convulsive contortion. The chain burned his ears and tore out tufts of his hair, but he had won the first stage of this battle. But now the demon was Stile's own size, still full of fight. It scrambled to its hooved feet and sprang at him, trying to loop the cord about his neck again. It seemed to be a one-tactic fighter. In that respect, it resembled the imitation Sheen robot Stile had fought not so very long ago. Stile caught its hands from the outside, whirled, ducked, and hauled the demon over his shoulder. The thing lifted over him and whomped into the ground with a jar that should have knocked it out. But again, it scrambled up, still fighting. What was with this thing? It refused to turn off. It had taken a battering that would have shaken an android, and all it did was grow larger and uglier. It was now a quarter again as large as Stile, and seemed to have gained strength in proportion. Stile could not fight it much longer this way. Yet again, the demon dived for him, chain spread. Stile had an inspiration. He grabbed the chain, stepped to one side, tripped the demon, and as it stumbled, Stile looped the slack chain about the creature's own body and held it there from behind. The demon roared and turned about, trying to reach him, but Stile clung like a blob of rubber cement. He had discommoded large opponents this way before, clinging to the back. It was extremely hard for a person to rid himself of such a rider if he did not know how. This demon was all growth and strength, having no special intelligence or imagination. It did not know how. The demon kept growing. Now it was half again as large as Stile, and the chain was beginning to constrict its body. Stile hung on, staying out of the thing's awkward graspings, keeping that chain in place. Unless the demon could stop growing voluntarily, evidently, it could not. It grew, and as it expanded, the chain became tighter, constricting its torso about the middle. It had fallen into the same noose it had tried to use on Stile. All it had to do was let go of the ends. But it was too stupid to do that. What colossal irony! Its own arms wrapped around it, being drawn nearly out of their sockets. But the only way it knew to fight was to hang on to that chain. It became woman-wasted, then wasp-wasted. Stile let go and stood apart, watching the strange progression. The creature seemed to feel no pain. It still strove to reach Stile, to wrap its chain about him, though this was now impossible. The demon's body ballooned, above and below the tiny waist. Then it popped. There was a cloud of smoke dissipating rapidly. Stile looked at the ground. There lay the chain, broken at last, separated where the demon figure had been. The amulet was gone. He picked it up, nervous about what it might do, but determined to know what remained. It dangled loosely from his hand. Its power was gone. Or was it? What would happen if he invoked it again? Stile decided that discretion was best. He coiled the chain, laid it on the ground, and rolled a rock to cover it. Let the thing stay there, pinned like a poisonous snake. Now that the threat was over, Stile unwound. His body was shivering with reaction. What exactly had happened? What was the explanation for it? He postulated and discarded a number of theories. He prided himself on his ability to analyze any situation correctly and swiftly. That was a major part of his game's success. What he concluded here as the most reasonable hypothesis fitting all his observations was quite unreasonable. A. He was in a world where magic worked. B. Someone, thing, was trying to kill him here, too. He found conclusion A virtually incredible, but he preferred it to the alternatives, that a super technological power had created all this, or that he, Stile, was going crazy. Conclusion B was upsetting, but death threats against him had become commonplace in the past few hours, so it was best to accept the evidence of his experience, that he was now in a fantasy realm and still in trouble. Stile rubbed his fingers across his neck, feeling the burn of the chain. Who was after him here? Surely not the same anonymous angry citizen who had sent the android squads. The serf who had crossed the curtain and given him the amulet had been friendly. Had he wanted to kill Stile, he could have done so by invoking the demon at the outset. It seemed more likely that the man had been genuinely trying to help, and that the amulet had acted in an unforeseen manner. Perhaps there was a number of such magic talismans. Dual purpose. Clothe the ordinary person, kill certain other persons. Other persons like Stile. That left a lot in doubt, but accounted for what had happened. Stile was a fair judge of people and motives. Nothing about the other man had signaled treachery or enmity. The amulet, as a mechanism to protect this land from certain people, seemed reasonable. Why was he, Stile, unwanted here? That he would have to find out. It was not merely because he was new. The stranger had been new not so long ago, by his own admission. Presumably, he had been given a similar amulet, and used it, and it had performed as specified. Stile had at first suspected some kind of practical joke, but that demon had been no joke. It could not be because he was small or male. Those could hardly be crimes in a human society. There had to be something else. Some special quality about him that triggered the latent secondary function of the amulet. Unless the effect was random. One bad amulet slipped in with the good ones. A kind of Russian roulette. And he happened to be the victim. But he was disinclined to dismiss it like that. A little bit of paranoia could go far toward keeping him out of any further mischief. Best to assume someone was out to get him, and play it safe. Meanwhile, he would be well advised to get away from this region, before whoever had laid the amulet trap came to find out why it had failed. And he wanted to learn more about the status of magic here. Was it some form of illusion, or was it literal? The demon had shown him that his life could depend on the answer. Where would he go? How could he know? Anywhere he could find food and sleep safely and remain hidden from whatever enemy he must have. Not the nearest castle he had spied. He was wary of that now. Anywhere near this place was suspect. He had to go somewhere in the wilderness, alone. Alone? Stile did not like the thought. He was hardly a social lion, but he was accustomed to company. Sheen had been excellent company. For this strange land, Stile nodded to himself. Considering all things, he needed a horse. He understood horses. He trusted them. He felt secure with them. He could travel far with a good steed, and there surely were horses grazing in those fields to the north. He had not been able to make out the specific animals he had seen from the tree, but they had had a horsey aspect.